Please be advised, viewer discretion is strongly recommended. None of the content presented here has been exaggerated or taken out of context. What you are about to hear includes the exact statements from the prosecution's closing arguments and the defense team's closing arguments, as well as the rebuttal from the prosecution in the federal trial against Sean Diddy Combs. In today's video, you'll hear the prosecution and the defense team's final attempt to persuade the jury, highlighting key evidence, testimonies, and critical moments from the trial. Some language has been censored to comply with YouTube's guidelines. This is a voiced-over reading of real courtroom dialogue, based on live reporting from courtroom journalist Inner City Press on X.com. All parties are presumed innocent until proven guilty. Listen at your own discretion. Today in the Diddy trial, the prosecution began their closing arguments, making their final push to convince the jury that Sean Diddy Combs is guilty.
Over the last few weeks, you've learned that Sean Combs is the leader of a criminal organization. He doesn't take no for an answer. He's into kidnapping, arson, forced labor, bribery of a security officer, and the brutal crimes of the sex trafficking. Consider two moments. March 2016 at the Intercontinental Hotel. The defendant got violent with Cassie. You saw what happened. He dragged her back to the freak-off. 2024 at Jane's house. The defendant choked and hit her. She ran, couldn't get away. These are chapters in the same book. The defendant counted on silence and shame. He thought that his fame and wealth and power put him above the law. Over the last 7 weeks, you've heard how he used his staff to promote his power. No one could stop him. We'll talk about RICO, including sex trafficking and transportation for prostitution, which are also separately charged as standalone crimes. You may have heard of racketeers. When someone commits crime as part of a group, they are more dangerous. A group of people whose purpose was to serve and protect the defendant. It's his kingdom. Everyone was there to serve him, fulfilling all of his desires, including his sexual desires. We need to show at least 2 racketeering crimes. The defendant was the head of the Combs enterprise. There was an inner circle, his chief of staff and his bodyguards. The names changed, but the roles remained the same. You've heard about KK, Combs' right brain. She lived in 2-star. She communicated with the defendant's girlfriends. His security, you heard their names. D-Rock, Bonds, Rube, Uncle Paulie, Fahim. They were armed and ready. Remember the incident at the diner with Suge Knight? David James told you Combs had guns. In the search, law enforcement found guns, including a rifle with the serial number defaced in L.A., 2 AR-15s with their serial numbers cut out in the defendant's closet. You also have the rotating cast of assistants paid by the defendant's business. Brendan Paul said he made $100,000 a year. KK made 6 times that. When your boss asks you to buy drugs, you're committing a crime. When you kidnap someone, or locked his girlfriend in a hotel room after your boss stomped on his face, it's a crime. The law does not require us to know that they like committing these crimes. You saw KK chiding the defendant to not be so reckless, but she got him cash, drugs. She was a member of the enterprise. It impacted interstate commerce. Minimal is fine. Combs knowingly became a member. He was the boss. He was the through line. The racketeering acts, distribution of drugs, kidnapping, arson, bribery, facilitating sex trafficking of Cassie and Jane, forced labor, travel for commercial sex, cover up. You only need to find that someone would commit 2 acts in any of these categories. It could be 2 acts of drug distribution, 1 kidnapping, just 2. You have far more than 2. Let's start with drugs, an essential ingredient of freak-offs. The most involved were D-Rock, KK, and Fahim, but others helped keep the drug supply high. We are not talking about marijuana, but what Brendan Paul called hard drugs. There are stipulations of the drugs found in the searches: cocaine, meth, oxy, ketamine, a dissociative drug, GHB, mushrooms, Molly, 2C, a combination dyed pink. It's 1305 and 1306. The quantities are not relevant. It's not an element of this crime. Distribution does not require a sale. You know the names of the drug dealers by now. Guido, One Stop, Baby Girl. Jane told you that on 2 occasions she was told to bring drugs when she flew to meet him. She coordinated with KK. It's corroborated by text messages. KK told Jane to swing by Mapleton to pick up the Guido package. He was called during hotel nights. So, We know what the Guido package was, more equity. The security team knew what it was. Guido texted Fahim, "Puff has a $450 balance with me." Brendan Paul asked for $780 for personal Gucci items, that is, hard drugs. Drugs were distributed. It doesn't matter he wasn't buying kilos or selling them. Personal use is just a distraction. They bought and distributed to people around him. Cassie used drugs at every freak-off, supplied by the defendant. He introduced Jane to drugs, gave them to her at all but one hotel night. He gave drugs to Carrie Morgan and Bonna Bonolin. He made Brendan Paul try Tusi to see if it was good. D-Rock would text, "One stop, need to see someone for bro," that is, the defendant. Guido asked Fahim to cover the defendant's drug debt. KK knew he was distributing drugs to the woman for the Wild King nights. Jane told KK she was having a bad come-down. KK gives pro tips how to deal with it. Plain and simple, this is drug distribution. How about kidnappings? They committed them under both California and New York law. Consider Cassie. Bond made her stay put. The defendant called Cassie a slut. He stopped on her face. She was disfigured. Roger Bonds caught her and brought her back. The defendant made her go to the London hotel on Sunset, so no one saw her. She wanted to go home to her mom, but no. It's clear Cassie did not consent to staying in the London hotel. David James testified the defendant demanded to see his search history if he had posted that the defendant assaulted Cassie in the club. Then there's Capricorn Clark. They made her take a lie detector test for days in an empty office building in Manhattan. This was in 2004. She was holding expensive jewelry that went missing. Uncle Paulie took her to the future HQ of Bad Boy. She was tested for 5 lies. The man administering the test told her if she failed, she'd end up in the East River. In Central Park, the defendant told her if anything happened, he'd have to kill her. David James remembers this. He was tested too, to get the rat out of the team. In December 2011, Rube helped the defendant kidnap Capricorn Clark. It started on December 22, 2011. The defendant banged on Capricorn's door with a gun. He was out for revenge. He barked an order at Capricorn. "Get dressed, we're gonna kill Cootie." They drove to Kid Cootie's house. The defendant had a gun in his lap. This was kidnapping. He moved her a substantial distance. The defendant said he wouldn't let her told until she brought him Cassie, who he kicked when she arrived, into fetal position. Cassie, who was with Kid Cootie that morning, testified with this. The officer who responded to the 911 call, he saw a black Escalade registered to Bad Boy. Then, on January 12, 2012, the defendant had Kid Cootie's car set on fire, arson. Someone cut a hole in the roof of Kid Cootie's car and dropped in a Molotov cocktail. We're not suggesting the defendant cut the hole. He didn't even buy his own soup, you heard the voice notes. He said he was going to blow up Kid Cootie's car. What are the odds? He says it, and it happened. The coincidences just keep on coming. The defendant and Rube just happened to be there a few weeks before. Kid Cudi was driving the same Porsche the night of the trespass. What are the odds? Kid Cudi had conflicts with no one except the defendant. Then D-Rock brought Kid Cudi to the defendant, who was looking like a Marvel supervillain. Years later, the defendant apologizes to Kid Cudi. Then there's bribery, the 2016 video. The defendant was having a freak-off with Cassie and one of the escorts, Jules. Flores found the defendant sitting in a chair with what he called a devilish stare. In the room, he saw another man. The defendant tried to hand Flores a stack of money. It was his first attempt at a bribe that day. As Cassie leaves, Combs starts damage control. He called Cassie over a dozen times. The texts, "Call me, cops are here." He was just manipulating her. But the defendant knew he could be arrested. There was video of the assault. He went and banged on Cassie's door with a hammer. Neighbors were going to call the police. They did in fact go. Carrie Morgan had the LAPD card. KK suggests, say they had a fun drunk night. She calls and reaches Eddie Garcia. Eddie says no. Then KK shows up in person. He won't show her, but says off the record, it's bad. KK has the defendant call Eddie on his personal cell phone. Once Eddie says his boss will do it for $50,000, the defendant calls him Eddie my angel. That's how he's saved in the cell phone. Eddie goes to deliver the USB. D-Rock and KK are there. The defendant counted out dollar by dollar the bribe. Eddie told you the security guard told him he came up with the defendant. That was D-Rock. Eddie asked the defendant, "What if Cassie calls police?" So, the defendant knew. Eddie finds the ID of stand-in for Flores. NDAs are signed. Don't speak to anyone. Paying for silence is influencing testimony. In their opening, the defense suggested it was just about bad publicity. Police involvement would hurt him. The two are connected. The next racketeering predicate is sex trafficking. Defendants' inner circle assisted, whether they wanted to or not. Threats, drugs, lies, and illegal violence to make them have sex with escorts. This is not an attempt to criminalize dysfunctional relationships or personal sexual behavior. They did not want to have sex with strangers while the defendant masturbated. They were covered in oil and sore over and over again. We are not asking you to find that every hotel night or freak off was sex trafficking, or even the majority. You only need to find the elements were met one time, one freak off. That's it. He's guilty. But it was way more than once. Let's start with Jane. Turn off the public screens. Consider the sobriety party. And in Jane's house. Let's start with the love bombing stage. Jane was head over heels. They traveled to the Caribbean. Dr. Hughes talked about this. She never met with any witness, but it was like she knew them. Love bombing is a tactic. He was grooming her. He gave Jane ecstasy. She fell to the ground, convulsing. The defendant liked baby oil and red lights. Then introduced in May 2021, she wanted to please her partner. She was high. The defendant had a freak-off set up that very night. An escort came. Jane was excited by that first experience. She didn't realize she had opened Pandora's box. It became 90% of their relationship. For a while, she went along. Then she told him she wanted it to stop. There are texts about this. Jane wrote, "I wanted to do things outside these rooms, to travel with you." The defendant ignored Jane's discomfort. Those hotel nights were not about what Jane wanted. They were about what the defendant wanted to see. He decided how long. Jane said, if she was going to have sex with strange men, she should choose which. The defendant made her ask them for nude photos. These were not for her. When she asked to use condoms, the defendant was not happy. He was dismissive and condescending. She would try to have it go faster. He'd order her to slow down. It was about what he wanted. He dangled carrots. He gave her gifts and money. He lied to her repeatedly. She asked, "When are we doing a getaway?" He said they'd go on a yacht, but didn't. Here's what Jane wrote in her notes app. "I don't want to have you use me to fulfill your freaky wild desires in hotel rooms." He used his payment of her rent as leverage. The carrot turned into a stick. She wrote, "The threats and innuendo are non-stop." He paid for her veneers because he didn't like her teeth, then said, "Look at the roof over her head and your pretty mouth and teeth." He wanted the all-star party, sex with 3 men. She sent him a photo of her period blood. He sent this voice note,
"I'm about to really disappear on you. I don't have no time for this, baby girl. You got me on my job. You got to get on your job."
The message couldn't be clearer, not going to take no for an answer. After reading Cassie's lawsuit, Jane writes to the defendant, "I feel like I'm reading my own sexual trauma. 2 of my birthdays you forced me." Jane wrote, "You gaslit me. It was sexual exploitation you framed as love for your sick fetishes." The defendant called her and tried to trick her into saying it was all consented to. He fed her a false narrative. "Listen to this clip." He talked over her. Dr. Hughes told you how a victim is trauma bonded to her abuser. Jane often felt the defendant didn't listen to the truth. She said, Sean would say just to move on. He told her to charge him, that lawyers would be involved, to buy her silence. So she asked for $100,000 a year for her to move on. She thought it was reasonable, far less than Cassie. The defendant went ballistic. She refused to adopt her false narrative. You can read the text message. Jane wrote that the defendant was going to show her sex tapes to the father of her child. Then he reached out and told her to come see him in Miami. She makes it clear he doesn't want a hotel night. He says, "Okay." Despite his promise, he called an escort. Here are more threats about the rent. Jane writes, "I hate worrying about the rent." This is in 2024. It all culminated in June 2024. He assaulted her and forced her to perform oral sex on an escort. This is sex trafficking. It was interstate, and the Astroglide crossed state lines. The defendant knew or recklessly disregarded that force. threats of force, coercion, or fraud were used. Consenting once doesn't mean she consented every time. One time is enough. In 2023, he made Jane feel she'd have a proper NYC weekend, but invited escorts. Jane sent him another message. "It's dark and sleazy, in fear of losing my home." His response, "Girl, stop." Then he FaceTimed her and told her about stopping and dinner. He lied. Look.
Public screen is still off for summary chart.
He is also texting Paul Arthur as escort. Look at these messages. He is setting up a hotel night. When she is in the air, he tells her he has a surprise for her. She did not want it. That, before the plane even lands, is a completed act of sex trafficking. He tricked her. Then, under coercions, she calls Cabral to come to New York. In the next text, she says, "In NYC, I knew you would pair me up with a random person." In the sobriety party, without drugs, she is so disgusted she vomits. She writes, "I'm not a porn star. I'm not an animal. I need a break." The defendant responds, "Let's spend the day. No strangers." She replies, "You'll love bomb me." He switches from carrot to stick, the house. He texts, "Are you going to let me into our house?" 8 times. Then he said he was sick and needed her. She went and had sex with 3 different men without drugs. After vomit, he said, "Get back out there." 2024 in Jane's house. 3 months after Homeland Security agents searched the defendants' homes. They used Jane's house. He came there. They were supposed to have a fun date night. They drank and argued. She pushed his head into the counter. He shouted at her. She told him to leave. She ran and closed doors. He kicked down 3 doors. You saw the doors. Here's one of them on the screens.
Public screens are still off.
She ran without shoes. She hid. He was waiting. Jane hit the defendant. He punched her in the face. Here are photos. He dragged her by the hair back into the house. Jane took his phone and called the other woman. She shouted. The defendant called Jonathan Perez. He followed her into the shower and hit her, knocked her down. He called Anton the escort and told her to have sex with him. She put on makeup to hide her injuries. She drove to pick up Anton at the gate. Then the defendant said, "Take this fucking pill." He put his face inches from her and asked, "Is this coercion?" He was brazenly acknowledging he was breaking the very same law he violated before. Jane didn't want to have sex with the escort that night. She said no, but he wouldn't take no as an answer. Jane performed oral sex until Anton ejaculated. The defendant told this security to bring cash to Anton. They didn't have it. The next day he gave Jane the money to pay Anton. She Ubered the bag of money over to him. This was coercion.
At this point, they take a break, and then they continue.
Let's go back. The 3 nights were part of a buildup, from fraud to coercion to finally force. The house was just an example of defendant's financial coercion of Jane. Also drugs. They came a necessary part of sex. Jane told you about Miami in 2024. He gave her liquid Molly. They showed you video. They'll argue that she was super into it. But she was super high. His coercion included threats to release tapes of her having sex in the hotel rooms. Combs threatened to send sex tapes to Jane's child's father. This was to coerce her into more commercial sex acts. The defense has suggested that Jane agreed to these hotel nights. Let's talk about what agreeing means. Theirs is an incomplete picture. Let's turn to Volume 2. We're going to talk about Cassie, with several examples. You know from sitting through this trial that force was not limited to these days. Through the decade they were together, he forced her to have sex with escorts. Cassie was 19. He was in his late 30s. He signed her to a 10-record deal. He took her on a yacht and gave her ecstasy. They had sex. They were in a relationship. She had just turned 21. The defendant was her boss, who called all the shots. He molded her. He told Capricorn, "Let me show you," then ordered Cassie around. She did it, walk and turn around. Total compliance. He didn't take no for an answer. He was abusive, physical, emotional, psychological, sexual. They want you to call this domestic violence. But he was forcing her to have freak-offs. He controlled everything. He demanded that her nails be done a certain way, on red carpets. The Vanity Fair party in 2014, Deontay Nash told you. He shouted. Combs shouted, "I thought I told y'all she had to have her hair up." He wouldn't let her make money from her music. She was offered the chance to do a common video. Puff said, no. He paid for her car, clothing, phones, and vacation. He made her dependent. He did it to her family, too. After he found out she was with Kid Cudi, he demanded $20,000 from her parent to pay him back, or he'd release sex tapes. That month, in just this account, he had $3.2 million coming in and out. This was about control. Remember what Dr. Hughes said. When a victim is on unsure footing, the abuser has control. He punched her, kicked her, dragged her. When it was bad, he hid her in hotels to heal and not be seen. You saw photos and video. D-Rock, Rube, Paulie, they knew. He attached her for attending a Prince party until Prince's security intervened. Mia and Myra Morales described abuse to you. Cassie told you, when she got to the house, he threatened to release the sex tapes. He assaulted her in Jamaica. He beat her up in Las Vegas while she was curled up under the toilet. She said, D-Rock cried. There was his assault at the Intercontinental Hotel, caught on tape. For Cassie, it was her normal. She was there when he attached Mia, Devontae Nash, and Bana. Bana may have gotten the date wrong, but she had injured. One time he has Cassie told guns for him, the diner and Suge Knight incident. Cassie was in the house. She saw. Why didn't she leave? Ms. Hughes explained that hitting leads to fear. Even when Cassie was in South Africa, she could not get away. KK kept calling. D-Rock was loyal only to the defendant. He played both sides. He talked to Cassie, then reported it back to the defendant. She about to ice up. I told her to chill out. They met for dinner in Malibu. Then he raped her on the living room floor. She said no. She cried. But he didn't take no for an answer. He raped her. He wrote, I could tell I didn't turn you on yesterday. That is, he raped her. Because of the trauma bond, after the rape, she met him at a friend's party, then had sex. Consensual sex. This was a trauma bond. He had an M.O., an hours-long performance. He masturbated and sometimes filmed. Just like with Jane, sometimes the defendant told escort to urinate on her. Sometime he urinated himself. Why? To turn himself on. She began drug addicted. Here she wrote, I love our FOs when we both want it. Jurors, this is not an all or nothing situation. There were times he knew she didn't want to do it. That is sex trafficking. She obviously didn't want to have an escort urinate in her mouth while she lay on the floor. Let's talk about the videos. You've seen clips. You don't see weapons. You see her having sex, masturbating. The defendant is moving the camera around, at times focuses on the escort, not Cassie at all. It's clear this was about his fantasy, not Cassie's. March 5th, 2016 in the Intercontinental Hotel, the video. Before the Intercontinental Hotel, Cassie had a premiere. It was a big night for her. She agreed to a freak-off as damage control. Look at this, she says. I don't want you thinking I don't want to. She knows the defendant won't take a no for an answer. The defendant gets Jules to come. You know what happens. An argument, the defendant hits Cassie in the face. All she can think about is her premiere. She takes off without her shoes.
Now the Intercontinental video shown.
He throws her to the ground. He kicks her, then drags her back to the room where Jules is waiting. Why is the dragging relevant? Because Jules is there. Freak-offs have multiple sessions. They were between sessions. He leaves her, but he takes her bags. But she doesn't follow him. Instead, Cassie is using the phone in the elevator lobby. The defendant is making another conscious decision, to take the bags into the room, then come back for Cassie with his hands free. He grabs her phone, then makes the decision to stay. He stays even though he is in a towel and looks ridiculous. After Flores arrives, he stalls in the hall. He knows Jules is still on the room, possibly naked. The defense claims he took back drugs that day, but you can see he is in control. Cassie just wanted to get her bag and phone and leave. The defendant offered Flores money. This is a photo of Jane in the car back to her house, with sunglasses, her black eye. He was using force to get Cassie to continue with the freak-off. The defense may tell you the violence was not connected to the sex, but it was an attempt to get Cassie to continue with the freak-off. Later she wrote to him, I'm not a rag doll, I'm someone's child. There were freak-offs in New York with Daniel Phillip. Daniel Phillip was not paid for his time. This is a ridiculous argument. In one freak-off, between session, the defendant told Cassie to come in the bedroom. She kept using the computer. The defendant threw a bottle, dragged her, then slapped her. Daniel Phillip heard Combs yell, "Bitch, when I tell you to come here, you come here." After that, Daniel Phillip could not perform. But a completed act is not required for sex trafficking. This is sex trafficking. They were at the film festival. The defendant accused Cassie of stealing his drugs. He threw her off the boat they were staying on. Mia heard an audio of this, recognized the voices. They flew back to NY. She traded seats to get away, but he followed and showed her freak-off videos. He threatened to release the sex tapes. When they got to New York, they had a freak-off. This is another example of clear-cut coercion. He threw her off a boat without her passport. He wanted Cassie to be afraid to say no to him. Cassie said, "I didn't know what no would mean, what no would turn into." He could be violent. The defense said Cassie made a choice every day to stay with him. Step back. Imagine yourself as Cassie. This was the force. This was the leverage. There were the drugs, dissociative and numbing. She needed that buffer. Yes, some of the messages are explicit. That doesn't mean she wanted to have sex with escort at freak-offs. In 2009, he wrote, "You're supposed to be seducing me all day." Cassie told the defendant she didn't want to do freak-offs. Take her birthday party, Deonte told you about. He demanded she freak off, and she did. What choice did Cassie have in the end? She did not have the freedom to make voluntary adult choices. Let's go back to count 1 for a minute. While it was the defendant in the freak-offs, but he had help from KK, D-Rock, Fahim. They knew it was wrong. How did they facilitate? KK got strange men access to rooms the defendant and Cassie shared. KK got Clayton Howard, Dave, access to the room. Jonathan Perez found the video of Cassie having sex with an escort. He showed it to KK. She knew. Fahim saw it too. Fahim got drugs to the defendant even during the freak-offs, between sessions. On February 18, 2024, after Jane told KK, KK still sent stuff for Wild King nights. D-Rock iced Cassie's black eyes. It would be absurd to think D-Rock didn't know what they were doing. Of course he knew. I expect the defense will say they didn't know. David James saw a stranger. Deonte Nash saw one. Jonathan Perez saw video of Jane having sex with another man while the defendant watched. Interstate travel for prostitution. The defendant paid escorts. He caused the travel. He sometimes booked it. The transportation counts do not require force, fraud, or coercion. Even if all consented, we know that's not true. It's still a crime. It's just knowing transportation with the intent the individual engage in prostitution. For count 3, freak-offs involving Cassie, the escort's travel was often booked by travel agents. She remembered Dave, Clayton Howard. He would travel from New York to Miami or LA. Another escort traveled to Ibiza, GX1402. This was Jules Theodore at the London Hotel in New York City. The defendant asked for Jules's name for the ticket. The defendant's Amex show he paid for a car. There's the $2,000 bill from the London hotel. The defendant texted, "I will tip you." For what? Sex. For this incident alone, the defendant is guilty under count 3. But there's more Jules at the London hotel, starting at 7 a.m. Consider this. Paul going to Turks. The defendant says, "How should I pay?" He paid for Paul's travel to Turks for sex. Here, Reggie flew from Las Vegas to LA for sex. He is never tired. Jane sent $1,100 via Cash App. Here is the hotel folio. $4,000 of damage. The hotel staff found bodily fluids on the floor. It couldn't be clearer. Every time KK helped arrange travel for the Wild King nights, she was part of the crime. She may not have liked it, but she did it. KK sent up travel for a Wild King night in Vegas. Combs' voice.
The wildest Wild King night in Vegas?
KK knows. KK helped Cabral book his travel. Combs asks her for cash. She knows exactly what is going on. She facilitated travel for the escorts. Each is a racketeering act. You only need to find 2 acts. Just here, there are dozens.
At this point, they take another break, and then they continue.
I expect the judge will instruct you on forced labor. You heard of forced labor of 4 women, Cassie and Jane, and Mia and Capricorn. Cassie and Jane, it was grueling sexual services. Cassie called them grueling, up to 4 days, maybe even more. Jane said the same thing. Cassie and Jane were on call to perform freak-offs for the defendant whenever he wanted, wherever he wanted. He used force or threats of force. He would say, "Let's finish on a high note. Let's push through. You're not tired, are you?" It took weeks to recover for these freak-offs. That's forced labor. KK kept setting up hotel rooms and flights. Let's turn to Mia. She worked for Combs, finally at Revolt. She went 5 days without sleep. Combs sexually assault her. He put his hand up her dress. He came into her bedroom and penetrated her. He came into the closet and forced her to perform oral sex on him. There was a time in the bathroom of the private jet she can't fully remember. Repeated traumatic events. She was clear as a bell even under cross-examination. She performed labor and services, including sexual services. He threw her against a wall and slammed a door on her arm. She saw violence at Prince's party, and on Turks, when they were in South Africa. KK told Mia, if you don't call him in 10 minutes, you don't have a job. He has all the power and control. She knew she couldn't say no, even to little things. Mia knew that her job was to protect the defendant. HR was for Combs. She couldn't go to the police due to Combs' power. The threats left her with no options. I expect you're going to hear that she could have left, that she told Combs she loved him. Mia pulled no punches. There were high highs and low lows. Capricorn Clark had an issue with overtime. She took the issue to the head of HR, Vashta Wilson. But HR was the defendant's puppet. The defendant and Uncle Paulie threatened her in Central Park, and the lie detector, and taken to Kid Cudi. Capricorn had a son to provide for. Combs threatened to blacklist her. Now, witness tampering and obstruction after Cassie filed her lawsuit. This weaves the whole story together. Jane wrote, "You gaslit me." She posed a problem for the defendant. So Combs called Jane. The calls were recorded on KK's phone. You can listen to them. On November 19th, 2023, Cassie's lawsuit was already settled, but he is afraid of a criminal investigation. He calls and asks, "What can I do to make you feel better?" He says, "I can't be speaking on the phone." He is worried the U.S. will get 3 years of his text messages with Jane. While he's recording the call, he tries to convince her she was willing. He says, "We just did some kinky shit I thought we both enjoyed." Do you hear, on the recorded call, the sound of notes being taken with a Sharpie to plan how to get what they want Jane to say? You've seen that in this trial, the lawyers passing notes to each other. Do you hear, on the recorded call, the sound of notes being taken with a Sharpie to plan how to get what they want Jane to say? You've seen that in this trial, the lawyers passing notes to each other. Then Combs had DeRock reach out to Mia, asking her to say something. Mia told you her reaction to this call. She had seen the defendant bash in Cassie's head. DeRock had seen it too. He was asking her to agree with a lie. As the federal investigation grew, they kept reaching out to Mia. DeRock calls her 5 times in a row. The chart Ms. Sankar presented to you bring this together.
For those wondering, here's how Combs' family looks in the courtroom. Art courtesy to Inner City Press from Elizabeth Williams.
The defendant's conduct toward Mia is also obstruction and witness tampering. Also obstruction. The video of the intercontinental assault. It's bribery, but also obstruction. Finally, venue. We only have a show and act in this district. Doesn't have to be criminal. SDNY includes Manhattan and the Bronx. Count 2, freak-offs in Manhattan. Court 3, freak-offs, Jules to the London Hotel in Manhattan. Court 4, Jane in Manhattan. You spent 7 weeks listening. A lot of the evidence was hard to hear or see. You heard from Kid Cudi, whose house was broken into and whose car was burned. You heard from Regina Ventura, Deontay Nash, how he ran the enterprise with total control. It's time to hold him accountable. It's time to find him guilty.
And that was the end of the prosecution's closing argument. After the prosecution made their final push yesterday, today was the defense's turn. Sean Diddy Combs' legal team stepping forward to deliver their closing arguments, aiming to dismantle the charges and persuade the jury to find him not guilty. Here's exactly what went down.
There is a trial set forth by the text messages. Then there is the trial out of the prosecutor's mouths. They are different. The trial from the evidence, what is it? It is personal use drugs. That's all it is. That and swingers, a lifestyle. But the prosecutors have charged one of the most serious statutes on the books. They called threesomes and drugs as RICO.
RICO stands for the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act.
I want to thank you for your service to our country. I would love to speak to you for days. But it's Friday. I am trying to be efficient. I have to cover a lot of ground. But I'll focus on the most important part, Sean Combs. Sean Combs is a self-made black entrepreneur. He has built real businesses that are so outstanding that others create partnerships with them. We heard that from Derek Ferguson. It is hard to be Sean Combs. How many witnesses said they were moved? The assistants were moved by Sean Combs. It was like Harvard Business School. He pushed me hard. Did they always like him? No way. Let's not even go there. Did they like him? Number. But they loved him, even the ones who were suing him. Mia? I'm not going to call her Mia because that's not her name. I'm going to call her the witness who testified as Mia. Remember Derek Ferguson from the Bronx? He said there were not many hiring people like me from the Bronx. There's something more to these businesses. Sometimes the real things in life are hard. No one remembers the easy days. These people grew. It was real. It was diversity. These days, DEI, Combs was doing it at 24. The prosecutors call his businesses racketeering. That's the fake trial. What happens? He gets arrested. They destroy his property. They have a SRT, Special Response Team. They are clandestine, can't follow with a camera. Rampant, they ran. His kids were there. And here, 6 of 7 in the second row. The 7th is an infant. This is who he is. The man takes care of people. Jane came here and testified against him. Today she's in a house he's paying for. And they found it. Boxes of Astroglide, taken off the streets. And they got the baby oil. And the personal use drugs. America is safer. 5 Valium pills. When you're doing work like that, we can't photograph you. That's the evidence. What do? They wrap yellow crime scene tape, figuratively, around his bedroom, around the hotel rooms he goes to with his girlfriends. That's a lot of crime scene tape. The crime scene is your private sex life. No one called 911. They called civil plaintiffs' lawyers. This case is about money. Cassie Ventura sues Sean Combs for $30 million because he has $30 million. If he doesn't have it, no civil lawsuit and no criminal case. This case is about 5 minutes. It's about love. Love has been said more than 800 times in this trial. The domestic violence, we own it. We did not ask Ms. Ventura about being hit, kicked, or dragged. We did not cross Jane about it either, but domestic violence is not charged. If he was charged with that, he would have pled guilty. He did that, but he did not do racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking. He did not kidnap or bribe anyone. The first person to say this was about domestic violence was Cassie Ventura. She made an Instagram post. She said, "Thank you for your love and support. The domestic violence is the issue." She could have said anything on her phone or tablet. She could have said this was about sex trafficking. She didn't say that. She said it was about domestic violence. Believe her. Believe Cassie when she says domestic violence is the issue. In that moment, watching that video, imagine that. To see their relationship is to see everything that Racketeers is not. I am not going to go through a lot of text messages or charts or screen time. It's a terrible thing. Screen time, I'm told. I'm going to tell you the story of this case. They fell in love. Cassie had a boyfriend of 3 years, 10 years older than her, but she meets Combs and they are off the races. Mr. Combs rents a boat and they make love for the first time. They are in an intense relationship, 11 years. Cassie is smart. She flat won. She's got $30 million and he's in jail. You probably know that. The nice-looking men behind him, they are U.S. Marshals. They keep him safe. Cassie has won 100-0. They tell you she's a victim. This is a great modern love story. They didn't write these in the past because they didn't have these problems. He had 6 kids at the time. It's a relationship based on love. Cassie said she was young and insanely jealous. If you're in the jury room and you don't want to go home, read their text messages at the time of the breakup. You will cry. They were selfless with each other when it wasn't going to work for the original sin of their relationship. That Gina. Gina wouldn't come here, but she's out there. Then Kim Porter passed away, and Mr. Combs said what he did. For Cassie, it was the last straw. She made an adult choice and left, like she always could leave. What happened? Nothing. Pick a message from 2018 and read it. These two people loved each other. If racketeering conspiracy had an opposite, it would be their relationship. They were their best selves when it came to sex. There were times that Sean Combs was proud. On sex, they found each other. It's a beautiful thing. You won't find a single text where she says, "I didn't like that sex." It was an 11-year relationship. The issues were jealousy and other women. but they match up when it comes to sex. Swingers. She's a woman who loves sex, and it's beautiful. She is unafraid. Let's talk about Kid Cudi. He came in here. I'm not meaning to be judgy. Cudi comes here and says, Cassie played me. She did. She played them both. Not everyone can do that. She goes for it. She liked to Sean Combs as she had a relationship with another singer, songwriter under his nose. She's not afraid of him. Was she gonna tell either? Number Cassie is keeping it gangster. She's like, I'm gonna lie to both. Cassie gets a burner phone. Finally. That's what you expect in a racketeering case. She's the one who got the burner phone. The morning of December 22nd, 2021, the whole thing with Cudi and all that. She had 2 hotel rooms. Whoa, a room for the burner. She was not going to tell nobody nothing. Let's talk racketeering. The judge is going to give a legal charge later today, assuming the first one is the 2004 kidnapping of Capricorn Clark. Let's talk about her, she said. I wanted my life back. Capricorn Clark's parents passed away when she was young. I don't mean any disrespect. She told you. I'm happy she did. Others didn't tell you about their parents. She moves to the Bronx and meets Sean Combs. She goes, super platonic. What? I think she means she didn't want it to be platonic. She's out there, you could see it. She says, you know, I had the biggest crush on you. I think we misused our dope chemistry. If she's kidnapped, why does she want to go back and work for him? She's getting her nails down with Mike B. He'd going to be mad at me. She says she called 1440 and said lock everyone in. She got the lie detector, and Mike B did too. How was she kidnapped if she went home every day? Is the government alleging 5 separate kidnappings? Paulie drove her home. Door-to-door kidnapping. The SDNY is charging this as kidnapping. It's not a kidnapping. You guys come here day after day, long days, and you come back the next. Have you been kidnapped? Number? At the time, Sean Combs is in Raisin in the Sun. He is running Vote or Die. He couldn't care less about this. The lie detector was former FBI. You guys have the right to say, that sounds like a stretch. Why charge it as a kidnapping? Come to whatever answer you think is the right answer. Capricorn leaves for a year. She makes more money. She comes back. Next, Sean and Cassie are having a freak-off. It's December 22nd, 2011. Cassie has 2 hotel rooms. Combs look at her non-burner phones, sees message with CC about Cudi, maybe called Scott in the text. Something about hiking. Why would he have a gun? He goes to get Capricorn. Why? She would do anything with him. Go to the moon. He didn't need a gun. He didn't have a gun. Cudi said Cassie told Cudi that Cassie already told Combs. Are you following me? Sean Combs has nothing to gain by having a gun and everything to lose. He is already Sean Combs. Capricorn would have stayed employed if he pulled a gun on her. No way. Didn't happen. No gun. Cudi didn't say that. Capricorn said Combs had a gun because there was no gun. Working backward, Cudi didn't tell the police about a gun. It was written up as a trespass, that's all. There's no gun. Capricorn's story falls apart. There was the car chase. Or was there? Cudi pulled up next to the Escalade, the witness said. There was no car chase. The judge is going to say you can disregard any witness if you find something not credible, if you see fit. It's all you need. Seems like everything is possible with Capricorn Clark. I asked her, she said, I came up here with Puff. I want to run away. I'm afraid of mountain lions. Mountain lions? I'm not saying they are not scary, but if you were kidnapped with a gun. Number? She doesn't want to say, I went there by my own volition. I'm not saying Sean Combs didn't go there. He wanted to fight him. Fine. Mother, Combs is not a coward. He's ready to fight. At the risk of being sexist, they are men. They fight. We're going to have a good old-fashioned 8 a.m, Hollywood Hills John Wayne fight. The Porsche? Not his style. There is no evidence. Who else would do it? Not evidence. Burning a car is cowardice. Be a man and fight him. What's in the car? Molotov cocktail? Why not show you the glove? I am suggesting something? Yes. That the investigation stunk. It's terrible. 2 fingerprints. What happened? Well, I don't know. You are going to determine his fate on arson. On this? The DNA was consistent with a female contributor. That witness was not helpful. If it had come back consistent with Combs, they would have bragged about it. Investigator Jimenez never followed up. He tried to find Cassie. Jimenez said Capricorn's brother obstructed him. They fought. I'm not saying Capricorn did it or Cassie did it. We're not here to solve the world's problems. Cassie's father didn't call him back. The witness was mad. Draw your own conclusions. Here's an email. Why is she calling him Sean Puffy Combs? For some later proof? She doesn't mention any car. Forget it. Let's turn to the London hotel. If you want to go to someone's house, it's not a kidnapping. It's unfair. Cassie is public too. Remember, Cassie also didn't want the tape out. She had a movie coming out. Let's go back to what was said about the hotel staff maybe leaking the footage. They were worried about publicity, not a misdemeanor. Guess what happened? It was sold. The police were nowhere near this situation. Is Combs acting like a fool, calling Cassie and saying the police are about to arrest him? She is freezing him out, as she should. He's just trying to get her attention. He leaves, goes to her apartment. He's banging on her door, maybe with a hammer. Carrie Morgan said, "That's why the police came. A neighbor called. The Intercontinental has no police period, so he cannot be guilty of bribery under California law, as the judge will tell you." And when Mia, the witness who testified as Mia, said she was out of Skrillo money, they should have told you that. Sean was concerned about Cassie suing him. He was not aware of any federal investigation, if there was one. So it's not obstruction. He's trying to stave off a lawsuit. And when it comes to Jane, he still might.
At this point, they take a short break, and then the prosecution says,
I did not want to object, but he asked the jury to ask why the prosecutors charged as they did. We need a curative instruction after the break. He told the jury that the Intercontinental was a misdemeanor, curative instruction. He told the jury Mr. Combs is charged with arson. That is not the case. It is a RICO predicate.
And the defense responded with,
I was going to get to RICO. On the rest, it's fair comment.
and the judge asks,
You said, why charge a kidnapping? You can ask that.
I think I'm allowed to be sarcastic. That's what I was doing there.
And the Intercontinental video?
It's a state matter, not federal. It's fair comment.
Can the government propose?
Yes, after the break.
Do you have proposed language?
Yes, Ms. Steiner has emailed the defense our proposed curative instructions.
Mr. Agnifilo, those three were grossly improper. Just to be blunt about it, the jury is not to speculate about the charge. I will tell them it would be improper for you to consider that. You are to disregard those comments.
We did not object yesterday since you called out Mr. Agnifilo.
I didn't call out anything. There was an objection.
Mrs. Slavic told the jury there might have been guns at freak-offs. There's no evidence of that. It was outrageous. No one is doing anything improper.
You made no record yesterday. Here, I'm not giving the multiple instructions, just one.
We ask you do that at the end, not now. It will suggest Mr. Agnifilo did something improper.
It is needed now.
Let's get our jury.
At this point, it is noted that Sean Combs leans over and whispers to Agnifilo, who takes a note. The jurors re-enter.
Before the break, it was suggested you should consider why this was charged, that it not proper. I will be instructing you on the law. Mr. Agnifilo?
Now we'll talk about Mia. She loved working for Mr. Combs. This was not forced labor. Remember the birthday video we showed up? She was bubbly, popping. That's the real her. You are free to conclude she put on an act here. If Mr. Combs felt it was improper, he would not threaten to tell Cassie. It was consensual. When Mia says it was not consensual, she is not telling the truth. There was no unwanted sexual conduct. Mia's feelings were not platonic. Mr. Steele questioned her about these wonderful pictures and slogans. Effusive, not just a job. This is a demonstrative. You can't take it into the jury room. Consider the scrapbook she made. I'm going to read it to you. Happy 45th birthday. Puff, this is from 1991 to 1999. I hope it stirs up nostalgic feelings. How great you've become. She loved you. You can't fake that. That's real. Don't leave sight of that. It's not just business. He gives people a home. Look at this picture. Think of a word that comes to mind. Joy. There's KK, D-Rock, Fahim. He created a remarkably special place. He moved people in their hearts and souls. When Mia is told she'd being fired, that she is going to leave the special place. Mia, my life is over. KK. OMG, WTF. Mia, that's not funny. Racketeering co-conspirator KK writes, Mia, answer your phone or I'm going to call your parents. That last thing she wanted to do was leave. And it's forced labor? Let's turn to drug distribution. The U.S. said personal use is a distraction. Brendan Paul said these were personal use drugs. He said he forgot to take the cocaine out of my bag. He said, I got the best lawyer in the world, and my charges were dismissed. That's what he said. Sean Combs was not selling drugs. Cassie said he was a drug addict. How was he supposed to get them? Grow his own Xanax? Did he have drugs? Yes. They found it in his house. Was he using his enterprise to distribute drugs? Number. You're gonna have to think through this. Didn't Mia go work for Madonna? That's how people use personal assistants. I don't expect we're going to see Beyoncé in CVS. The assistants buy Astroglide. It's not what the company is doing. This is not a racketeering act. I'm going to RICO. There's no evidence of possession with intent to distribute drugs. David James said he's in Saint-Tropez. He's asked to get an 8-ball of cocaine. I asked him, anything to do with Sean Combs? He said no, he kept it from him. Why would he hide it? It's people in creative fields doing what people in creative fields do. It's not racketeering. I'm going to talk about Cassie. Can you sex traffic your girlfriend? Maybe, if you push them into prostitution. But he's not making money from it. Jane has some texts that are very anti-hotel night. Cassie, she doesn't. People are in love. People are having sex. Let's say your partner wants to do something and you don't. Where does that land? Cassie wanted this, including to be close. It's like, my wife is from Los Angeles. I hated LA. Now I love Los Angeles. Sorry, that's how it happens. Cassie, she is a beautiful, sexy person. She was with Michael B. Jordan, like the most handsome man in the world. She is not messing around. Cassie is not clutching her pearls. This is how I am intimate with the man I love. You could come to love that. You want to be close. Yesterday they said some she might have wanted. Oh, they said Can, Daniel Phillips, and Intercontinental. If she likes 75, can number 76 be sex trafficking? Talk about going 0 to 60. Nothing said to him. She doesn't want to even do these again. Mr. Donaldson Cross examined Daniel Phillip. Let's look at the text. Sean asks, are you horny? She says yes, talks about fantasies. That is their lifestyle. She writes, I'm not going to do too many of these, my mother would. She writes, my p is so hot. They are doing through this together. I'm going to play part of the video. In this Intercontinental video, it's more likely than not, it is Combs' phone. Here she is. I am not going to show you him throwing her down. You've seen it. I am not hiding it from you. Now, there is a phone. And here now, a well-known man sitting in his towel and socks. Looks like Cassie is saying, you're being a fool. Go back to the room. Look at it. It looks to me like she says, go back to the f***ing room. There's nothing scary in the room then. 5 days later he texts, I'm so sorry, she replies. LOL, I was just listening to sorry. They are obviously getting over it. Cassie writes to Sean, how do I know if the drugs are going to be bad or you'll drink too much? This is about the hotel. Cassie told you, sometimes she hit him first. They are in this together. Okay, she says there was a rape. It did not happen. It is not charged. She was asked and said, he raped me. But there wasn't a lot of lead up. Maybe it didn't happen. Cassie wrote to Combs. Cassie is with her current husband. Something happened. She wrote, I told myself I didn't want anything to happen. But I'm not tripping on it. I know you aren't either. She gets a FaceTime. Boogie Bat phone is her husband. Combs wrote, you act like a broken-hearted angel. You need to stop living your lie. Cassie says, I don't know who that was. I was saying thank you for last night, and I enjoyed it. The oldest trick. I don't know how Alex found out, but she says, rape. There is no evidence of a rape. She had consensual sex with him after. I have to defend this. It is in the case, but it is not charged. Cassie was asked, what kind of pain did Sean put you through? She spoke about his own personal pain, his shame. It's beautiful. She said, he felt pain, and most painful to me was carrying around his shame. Jane says almost the same thing. I felt my partner was trusting me in a very vulnerable moment. I wanted to go along, if I can be my partner's escape. Jane says, I am getting vulnerable with you in the hotel rooms. I don't want to see young Miami on a bigger yacht with you. That's not trafficking. If you get deep into this deep self, this is not sex trafficking. It's people in love being real. Your Honor, when we're...
I was going to go to one. If now.
At this point, they take a break and then they continue.
Welcome back. You may proceed.
There was a suggestion Cassie didn't get the same amount of promotion as others are. Bad boy. I think Capricorn Clark is an imperfect witness, but she did say that Cassie got the lion's share. Either side played the videos for the witnesses, but Cassie's videos were on her devices. She said the devices were damaged, but the expert was able to open it. I don't know what role these videos played in her life, but she didn't delete them. In the videos, the hotel rooms are beautiful. The music is great, Usher and whatnot. You were never meant to see these videos. Let's be honest, Sean Combs was never going to release these videos. He might have said it, but no way. No way. Cassie is eating watermelon. They are listening to music. These are beautiful nights. The two escorts, the Punisher, I call him, he got it from basketball on West 4th Street. Though Cassie was really into them. They were naive. I don't think this is the only man making homemade porn in America. I think it is a pretty popular thing these days. Jane, she wants to post things, on Instagram I guess. That's what she's into. I think she loved Sean Combs. You guys know who the father of her child is. You know who she was with in Vegas. She is comfortable with this. The government is not saying every hotel night is sex trafficking. They isolated September 2023. Jealousy over a yacht. Sometimes Jane didn't like the guy. She said one smelled. Then the guy is sent back. 3187, the escort gets sent packing. He's a bum, but they still paid. No sex, got paid. Paying for time. Yesterday they just dismissed it. But that's what happened. Jane wanted it to happen. She called her guy Cabral. She liked Cabral. She wrote muy caliente. Then there's the sobriety party. Jane is angry over Gina. And then she says she regretted it, resented it. But she agreed to do it. Unfortunately. She said that. She agreed to it, unfortunately. She agreed. That's it. We can be done with it. The house. Jane had the worst lawyer in the world. Her low child support from the father, in my opinion. Mr. Combs did the right things. Paying. It's damned if you do, damned if you don't. He's paying for the house for a child that's not his responsibility. They watched porn. Jane got him a mobile TV to watch it, so he'd make less porn, she said. I'm not sure that's how it works. The photos, Combs has a big pour of wine. Strawberries in there, but it's big, not like a fancy restaurant. Half an hour later, something inexplicable happens. She slams his head into the counter and calls him a pedophile. The woman Ali is of age. Jane says Combs kicked her doors in, but he didn't hit her. I'm not saying he should, but he didn't. Here's what we do know. A text from Jonathan Perez says they are fighting. 10:14, he says, just normal being jealous. PD says, don't come, all good. Now, Jane changes into another dress. I don't know. No sweats? She says she hides behind a wall for 2 hours. I submit it's just not possible. She's just wrong or lying. I don't know. She comes back. Combs is in the street. No violence. Okay, it looks like she was hit twice. Doesn't look like he hauled off, nor that he dragged her. You know what this is. She is documenting her injuries. Let's talk about Anton. She sees him in Vegas with, you know how, a rapper of some prominence. She is watching Anton have sex. She's asked, what did you do? She says, I showed my breasts. Why? It sounds like spring break. Then the rapper goes up to her with a question about the swingers lifestyle, and she gives them Cabral's phone number. The story doesn't make sense. Let's say something else happened in Vegas, and then it's the same Anton who comes to her house. Coincidence? The one who shows up at her house is Anton. What she says makes no sense. Anton is a porn star. He has sex. Jane knows they're an investigation. Did she instigate this? Her story makes no sense. Why was she so persistently violent? She says, I didn't want to do it, but she let Anton in. I submit. They were trying to get past it. Oral sex only. At the end of the day, her story has so many holes in it. You could say, she prompted it. She maybe wants something in her pocket. I'm going to have something. Maybe I'll never use it. Why the unprovoked extreme violence? She doesn't explain it. You guys are here because you have lived full lives. You were chosen. And they chose only 2 of the escorts, the Punisher and Daniel Phillip. They could have given others immunity. Neither of the 2 admit being a prostitute. They're witnesses. If you get paid when you didn't have sex, you are getting paid for your time. In Sean Combs' mind, this is legal. It would be different if a witness said, I went and had sex, and there was a negotiation for it with Sean Combs. I assume in every porn movie, the actors get paid to have sex. And yet, it's legal. so he thinks it is legal. Okay, let's talk racketeering. Here's page 14 of the charge. The enterprise. The group must have an organization. You'll hear this. Only Sean Combs is charged here. No one testified. I was a part of a racketeering enterprise. This is the greatest divide between the evidence in this trial and what the prosecutors are saying. There is a gaping lack of evidence. They didn't charge racketeering, they charged racketeering conspiracy. They need a co-conspirator, and they just don't have one. They claim KK. The evidence at this trial shows KK is a helpful person. Kerry Morgan called KK and D Rock. They are not co-conspirators. If John Gotti were kicking in your door, would you call Sammy the Bull Gravano? No, he is a co-conspirator. There is only one trial. KK is not a co-conspirator. KK is a very nice person. There is no evidence that anyone is a co-conspirator. The firearms are not charged. Homeland Security cannot say where the guns were. The Shug Knight story, it's not charged. Dawn, Richard, remember her? Ms. Westmoreland did the cross, not charged. Yesterday the government said, in the videos you don't see guns, but he probably shouldn't keep videos with guns in them. Is that fair? That's a little sinister. Why are they doing that? And it was Cassie who asked to be urinated on. At some point you can ask, can I trust the prosecutors? It takes a lot of courage to acquit. I think that the evidence shows, and you can conclude, that the government targeted Sean Combs. I wouldn't say that if Cassie went to Homeland Security. America is great because between each citizen and the government, there is a jury. This is your house. I am asking you to summon that courage to do the right thing and acquit Sean Combs on all counts. He is not a racketeer. He is innocent. Let him go home to his family. Thank you.
It's time for the prosecution's final word. The rebuttal begins now.
He brought up conduct that hasn't been charged and said Mr. Combs was being targeted. We request curative instructions.
Then the judge turns to Combs' lawyer and tells him, you should have phrased it differently, but you went on to focus on lack of a conspiracy, and asks him, what about the targeting charge? How is that not improper?
No one went to law enforcement and complained. It's fair comment.
He said what he said. Targeted. It's improper. A curative instruction is required. They made the argument pre-trial, and they lost. This was inappropriate.
Before the jury returned, the judge said he would add a reminder to the jury instructions that they must focus only on whether the government proved each charge beyond a reasonable doubt. Despite the defense asking to delay it until Monday, the judge decided to deliver the instruction immediately. When the jury returned, he told them directly that any claims about Mr. Combs being targeted were not for them to consider. Then, the prosecution resumed.
The defendant did not take no for an answer. Certainly not from his girlfriends. He beat them. They suggest he didn't pay for sex, that there was no enterprise, and that the witnesses lied. But he flew a sex worker across the country to have sex with Cassie and Jane while he married. It was not for their conversation. It was for sex. Remember Daniel Phillip? He said he got paid for sex. When he had performance issue, he stopped getting paid. The Punisher? $500 when no sex. Thousands when sex. I suspect you'll hear that uncalled witnesses were equally available to both sides. Maybe some of these men would have worked for free, having sex in front of the masked celebrity. But they got paid. The defendant is guilty of counts 3 and 5. An enterprise can have unlawful and lawful purposes. KK? Uncalled witnesses are equally available to both sides. Did they agree to at least 2? Yes. Quick hits. The kidnapping is corroborated by Kid Cudi. He said, she was forced to go along with them. Mr. Agnifilo said Mr. Combs is a fists guy. Sure, when it is his girlfriends. With men, he needs guns. The London hotel? He made Cassie go after he stomped on her face. She wasn't allowed to go home to her mom. That is a kidnapping. The arson? Somehow the glove fell of someone's childlike hand. He said he would do it, and he did. Cassie said it. Eddie Garcia, he believed he could not go to the police under the agreement. And Combs said, watch out how you spend it. Bribery. This is guy that can't get his own water bottle or plug in his own phone charger. He's the general. He delegates. KK knows the Wild King Knights involved escorts. The only reason he needs thousands of dollars in hotel rooms is to pay escorts. KK reads all of Combs's texts, so she knew. KK alone made Combs guilty of count 1. Drugs. Mr. Agnifilo talked about conspiracy to distribute. But given drugs to Cassie and Jane is distribution, that is enough. Mr. Agnifilo claims they wanted it. The defense's theory is that Cassie wanted to be urinated on, that Jane wanted to have sex with Anton after being beaten, and Mia wanted to be penetrated. That Cassie and Jane wanted to spend days in oil with UTIs and high heels, strange men. Mia said no. Cassie said no on her 29th birthday. Jane said no before Anton after being beaten. These women, stage whisper, had no reason to lie. The defense say it's for money, but Cassie already got paid. If Cassie were lying and already got paid, why would she take the chance of perjury in a federal trial? This is a woman standing up for what is right. Mia already settled in mediation. There's no reason for her to put on a show for you. Jane doesn't intend to sue. These women refuse to let trauma swallow up their whole lives. That struggle tells you these women told the truth. They broke free of the defendant's manipulation. Jealousy is not a defense to sex trafficking. Jane picking out Cabral and Anton was her way of taking back some control. Yes, she texted escorts. Sometimes he told her. Sometimes she knew he would ask. She felt she had no choice. That's coercion. The defendant did hit Cassie during freakouts. Cassie said it, Daniel Phillip told you. And it's on video. The defendant was in a towel. The freakout was not over. There's no separating the violence and the sex. Remember when Cassie OD'd in a hotel room in Long Island and they still had the freak-off? When Jane performed oral sex on Anton after Combs beat here? That was trafficking. Mr. Agnifilo said Cassie won a prize. What prize? Sex with a UTI? Getting urinated in her mouth? It's ridiculous. They had a trauma bond. They were trapped. The cost of trapping them was a drop in the bucket for Mr. Number 1 on the Forbes list. He pushed her to continue after she vomited. He knew she didn't want to. The Intercontinental? They claim he was intoxicated, that it was about a phone. He knew what he was doing. He kicks her. She calls security, so he stays to keep control of her. I want to be clear. They called Anton because he was the only repeat player in LA. They stopped with Cabral after he tried to extort Jane. Whatever words he used about a conspiracy between Jane and Anton, there is no evidence for it. He coerced Cassie and Jane into this, and nothing happened. He raped Mia, and nothing happened. He beat Cassie, and nothing happened. He beat Cassie in hotel on tape, then bribed the guards to buy it, and nothing happened. He was untouchable. He did not think these women would speak, and that Kid Cudi and Deontay Nash and other men would back them up. The defendant is not a god. He stands equal before the law. Find him guilty.
And that was it for court today. The judge dismissed the jury until Monday, when they'll return to begin deliberations. The courtroom will also be preparing the exhibit list and laptop the jury will use to review evidence. With closing arguments now complete, we're officially entering the final phase of the Diddy trial, and the verdict could come at any time once deliberations begin. If you want to stay up to date on the final developments, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens next. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next update.